remember the R&B group In Vogue? You guys remember them? They had this song called Never Gonna Get It. They are also known for Giving Him Something He Can Feel, Don't Let Go, Free Your Mind. You know what I'm talking about. 4 ladies, and they called themselves In Vogue. Well, they were one of the many R&B groups during the time that were also ripped off by the record label. It wasn't just TLC. It was also In Vogue. Now we see that there has been a viral video from a former In Vogue member. This is Dawn Robinson, who was one of the members of In Vogue, where she's talking about that she's been living in her car. And I say this because as someone who saw In Vogue just like a year or 2 ago, they were a part of like this mixtape tour. It was In Vogue, New Kids on the Block, Rick, the Rick Rolled guy, the guy's like Never Gonna Give You Up. He was there. Salt and Pepper. So like it was an old school mixtape tour here in Boston, and In Vogue was there, but Dawn wasn't. She's no longer a part of that group. They have 3 members, but she wasn't there. And I think one of the other members is new. So keep that in mind. When you hear about In Vogue doing these tours, that does not include Dawn, right? Dawn is living in her car. Guys, I want to show you this really quick. You need to hear this. Shout out to Blue. Oh my God. Dawn Robinson from In Vogue revealed that she's been living in her car for the past 3 years. Listen to this.
You guys, for the past almost 3 years, I have been living in my car. I said it. Oh my God, it's out. I've been living in my car. Oh my gosh. If you remember, if you guys were with me, in 2020, I did like 105,000 interviews. And in the interim, I was living with my parents in Vegas. And that was wonderful until it wasn't. I love my mom, but she became very angry. And a lot of her anger, she was taking out on me, and I was her target all the time. And I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, I respect her too much. Let me get out of here. And I was sleeping in my car for maybe about a month in Vegas. And then the guy that was co-managing me at the time was living in LA. And he said, you need to come back to LA. Okay. And he said that I could stay with him. And so I was like, okay. He's like, I don't have a lot of room, but I'll make room for you. And then when I got to his place, he actually didn't have room for me. So it turned into, okay, well, I'm going to put you in a hotel for the night. And that one night turned into 8 months. Oh my God, you guys, because every apartment that I looked at, every single time I looked at a place, I would call him and I'm like, okay, can you meet me here? I would tell him ahead of time, of course. And then he wouldn't meet me there until I would take video and send it to him. And he's like, no, oh my God, this neighborhood, I hate it. I mean, I felt like he was playing games, and I knew he was playing games, and I wasn't the one. I'm like, come on, I'm trying to make this easier on you because financially, I know it's got to be hard. You're paying your rent and you're paying my hotel. His apartment was $1,700 a month. And then my hotel was over $3,000. Yeah. So, and I was always stressed every week because he would pay weekly for the hotel. So every week I was like, oh my God, can you afford it? Are you okay? And he's like, no, I can't, but I'm getting it together. What? You're the one who said to go to the hotel, and you're not approving any of the apartments. Like, it would be so much cheaper to just get me into an apartment. Like, what's the problem?
So let's talk about something here. From what I understand, I believe that Dawn has had like some issues, right? Some with substance abuse, etc. But that's besides the point. I wanted to talk about the story because I wanted to show people, I think oftentimes there's this misconception that musicians who may have been successful at the height of their career are still wealthy or still living well. And, kudos to Dawn for coming forward and telling us about her story because she didn't have to. There are a number of people that are living on the street. There was a member of Santana that was living in a tent on the street in LA. You see, when we see these people on our TV screens and we may have bought like their CDs, et cetera, at some point or another, we see them in these glamorous videos. We watched In Vogue walk up on stage and win all these awards, these music awards. And we think to ourselves, like, how can these people be broke? That's what I thought about with TLC. But then you realize and you hear the story and you understand that like they didn't understand the business, right? So a lot of times these record labels will find a way to get over on these artists. And the way that they do so is that they create these lengthy contracts. A lot of times in these contracts, there's a lot of lawyer jargon that's there. And if you're not a lawyer, you may not understand it. Honestly, you may be excited that someone wanted to sign you and you may not even read it. That is really dangerous, by the way, to sign these contracts and not read them. Oftentimes there were artists that were signed that didn't know they should have had a lawyer present when they were signing that contract. A lot of times people don't know, and a lot of times the record label won't tell you. But In Vogue was one of those groups that was screwed over royally by the record company. So you see them winning all these awards. You see them selling all these albums. You think, hey, they've made it. They're rich. They're good to go. But with a lot of these groups, that is not the case. And you see that also with In Vogue. Dawn was one of the members that really tried to fight to get them the money that they deserved. And it didn't happen. She goes on to say here, I want to go to part 2, because later on she did join another group with one of the members of Tony. And from what I understand with that, she got screwed over with that situation as well.
This is not like, oh my God, poor Dawn. She's living in her car and it's terrible. Oh, what was me? It's not that. It's not like I said, I'm learning about who I am. I'm learning myself as a person, as a woman. And I didn't think if you would have said to me while I was in Vogue, you're going to be living in your car one day, I'd be like, huh? No, I'm always going to have an apartment. I can't live in my car. How can I do that? I won't be able to live in my car. We say that we can't do certain things before you even know we're capable. I'm glad that I made this choice because I needed to go through this fire. If some of you are on your spiritual journey, you may know or may have heard of something called Dark Night of the Soul. And that's when you go through like a period of isolation, a period of separating yourself from family and friends. And I'm in the trenches of this right now. And I'm like, I wouldn't trade my experiences and what I've gone through for the world. I hope from this you can gather that, wow, if Dawn could do that, I could do anything. It's been an unexpected path that I've enjoyed quite a bit. It's not like, oh my God, she's got somebody to help her every day. I don't. It's just me. But that's the beauty of it. Like learning that I can do all these things myself. Wow. Come on. I'm really, really, really proud of myself. I was talking to someone about filming this, actually getting some more footage and filming this for me. And they were saying, well, people might think this is a publicity stunt. I'm like, there are many things that people have done for publicity stunts. Saying that I'm living in my car and actually not living in my car would be a stupid publicity stunt, but this is not publicity. I have all the footage from Vegas to LA to prove that. So once you guys see my actual documentary, you'll know. This was no joke. And it is not something that I would have chosen, but I'm glad that I put myself out here.
So some of you may be wondering, where are the other members of In Vogue? Why aren't they trying to help Dawn? Why haven't they come to her rescue? Right? So again, what's done in the dark comes to light, right? Just because someone is a part of a singing group doesn't mean that everybody stays besties years down the road. In Vogue, when they were popular, they were very successful, but that doesn't mean that they maintain those relationships later on. One example to point to is the Supremes, right? I saw this comment. Someone said, MBD, the other girls aren't homeless. No, they're not. And I bring up the Supremes because it was a similar situation, right? Diana Ross went on to have a thriving solo career and did really well for herself. Did you know that one of the members of the Supremes also didn't have a place to live? My mom had the book. My mom read the book about the Supremes long time ago. Did you know that I believe it was Mary who didn't have a place to, was it Florence or Mary? Which one? Florence didn't have a place to live. And apparently, according to the book, went to Diana Ross and asked for help. And Diana didn't want to help. So you guys got to understand, like, things aren't always what they seem, but someone does want to help. And that is Dawn's ex-husband. He came forward after that video came out, and he said he wanted to set the record straight on a couple of things. And he also gets into the dangers of the music industry. Listen to this.
I was married to Dawn for 10 years. A lot of people get it wrong because Hollywood and gossip sites and other bullshit tend to do that. Just like most everybody reporting that I'm a 2-time Grammy winner, I'm not. I only worked on 2 Grammy nominated projects. Nominated. They say I'm 49 years old. I'm not. I'm 52 years old. My group, for example, they had one hit in 1995 called I'd Rather Be Alone. It went gold after the second single and the second video came out. We broke up. And that's when I ended up signing to Babyface and Tracy Edmonds' label. But most of my credit was earned as a songwriter, writing for Jesse Powell and Will Downing and As Yet, Ricky Bell from New Edition, Montel Jordan, Stevie B, the NBA Jam Session, Big Boy from Outkast. Anyway, this isn't about me. This is about me just minding my own damn business the other day and seeing a video come up on my feed, and then a bunch of other people texting me the same video of my ex-wife, the woman that I was in love with for about 10 years of my life, telling the world that she was sleeping in her car and was homeless. That either her mother put her out or her mom was making her life miserable. And immediately I knew all of that shit was not right. I know Barbara Jean Alexander, okay? That woman is an angel. Her mother and I talked, actually, we just talked yesterday. She'd never put her out. She'd never put her daughter in the streets. There's no argument that you could have with Barbara Jean that you could ever view as aggressive or mean-spirited. So I knew something else was going on. I don't know. I scroll through and I see people talking and people ripping her apart and putting their 2 cents in. But this music industry is demonic.
Let me pause right there. So I want to say this. Number one, kudos to her ex-husband for coming out to speak out, you know, in favor for her. He didn't have to do that. They're not together anymore, you know, so maybe they still were able to maintain some type of a friendly, you know, relationship, but he didn't have to do this. So kudos to him for standing up for that. But now he gets into the music industry.
It takes and it takes and it takes. It uses you up until you have nothing left, and then it seeks to destroy you for the ratings. Because the people at the top, they get paid on both ends, on your way up and on your way down.
Yep.
So if nothing else, I just want people to look at Dawn as a human being right now. I know Jermaine Dupri seems to feel like maybe this might be a hoax that she's doing or some kind of publicity stunt. Slim Thug had a more human take on what's happening, but those are men. What I want you to understand is that this is a woman. And while we can bounce back and end up in a position like I'm in right now, I'm an executive for Hilton. I make over $500,000 a year. Not everybody can do that shit without some help. So maybe you could call it survivor's guilt or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But when I see my ex, somebody that had my heart at one point in my life struggling, I don't believe that bullshit about her wanting to do van life or, you know, wanting to have to put a video out telling everybody that she's living in her car. I believe it was a cry for help. You know, so I reached my hand out to help. Sad part is, I don't think she'll take it. I'd love if she did, but This industry, it twists your head up so fucking tight that the only thing that matters is the crowd's approval, and she doesn't have the crowd anymore.
She doesn't have the crowd anymore. This is another thing too. I think that there tends to be some type of drug that comes along with fame, right? Imagine performing in front of, stadiums of people and selling all these records and winning all these awards, and everybody loves you, and we want you on the cover of this magazine and the cover of that magazine, and the record company loves you because you're making money for them, and then also they've given you an advance, and you may not have known this because you probably didn't go into the contract, but you got to pay all that back before you get a cent. All those types of things. Like, everybody loves you, you're on top of the world, and then one day it all falls apart. And it happens to a number of artists. It also happens to people in the movie industry as well. And when he says that they make money when you're doing well and they make money when you fall, it's true. Because bad stories and sad stories still sell. So when you're selling a lot of records, they make money. And when you fall completely off, they make money because they get to tell the story. The industry will eat you up. It will eat people alive. And a lot of us, most of us have never had that experience ever. I've never had that experience. But I think it does something to you mentally to have all that attention, all of that fame, and then one day it's just all gone and you're back to being the person that you were before you were famous. How do you adjust? How do you get back to that? There were a number of people, even when we talk about reality TV, some of the cast members that were a part of shows like The Real World, remember The Real World and Road Rules that were part of like those shows? Even some of the reality TV stars talked about how when they walked away from it all, it was almost like that was a past life and they now had a totally different life that they had to adjust to. Right? So I think for some people, that type of fame can be addictive.
She can't do anything to get that back. She don't really believe that. I know that's what all this is about, but she's struggling with something. I'm not a doctor, but I'm aware of, mental health issues. I had one at a point in my life decades ago. I had problems with my temper. I had abandonment issues from being abandoned by my mother, abused, raped, incarcerated, molested throughout my childhood, my entire childhood. But I'm a man. I bounced back and worked through my mental health issues. But what about when you're the biggest girl group since the Supremes and you're conditioned by producers, predatory fucking producers who know that they're gonna fuck you for every dime that you earn. But they feed you a bunch of hope and dreams, and you record album after album after album and never, ever, ever fucking get rich. Now you're older and the radio stations, they don't want to really play your new music. They don't want to play your music videos.
Or they don't want to work with you because you're now older and they don't see you as marketable anymore. And the reality is, I think for some women, particularly in the music business, you kind of do have a shelf life where it's like, you kind of got to get out there when you're more younger if you really want to like blow up like that, right? And then Dawn says that she does want to sing again. She says she does want to get back out there. But then some of the record labels now are kind of like, well, you don't look the same anymore. You're older now, like that type of thing. These record executives, they're really looking for young, new talent, right? And the younger that they can get them, they consider that to be like the better. That's where a lot of the teen like singers come from when you think about it, right? So he goes on a little bit more here to say they don't want to work with you.
Nothing to do with you. You didn't get your big shot to put out your solo album, the bills start piling up, the shows start drying up, and you're getting older still. Your group kicks you out. You find another group. That group kicks you out. You finally meet the man that you want to marry, and you marry him. Then he kicks you out. But you still have dreams. And the people that come, they don't quite know how to get it done for you. So you get bitter, and you get angrier, you start to be demanding, and people look at you like, who the fuck are you to be demanding? You haven't had a hit in years.
Yep. And if you haven't had a hit in years, that's pretty much, they look at you as though that you are now nothing. I mean, that's kind of how they look at it. But the good news is he offers her a job now, like this. So something did come from this. Dawn Robinson's ex-husband offers her a job after En Vogue alum revealed she's been living in her car. So this made a lot of news, you guys. Like, I guess this was them back in the day when they were still together. And Dawn always had a really strong voice. So it says here that Dawn Robinson's former husband is offering her a job after her revelation that she's been living in her car for the past 3 years. And you guys can see some of the pictures here. Here's another one of them together back in the day. And there's a picture there of En Vogue for those who may not know. I don't know how old everyone is in the chat, but they were phenomenal. Like, those women can sing their ass off. And there's Dawn there at the end. I think she had probably the most powerful voice of the group. Like, she really could sing. And it was kind of shocking to me when I found out that they also really didn't make any money, that they were screwed over by the record label. And it just really sucks. All I know is that one day they were here and the next day they were gone. We used to go roller skating. When I was growing up, we would go roller skating on Friday or Saturday night sometimes. And guess what they would play? They would play the Never Gonna Get It song. Never gonna get it, never gonna get it. They would play that song at the skating rink. Like, we would hear En Vogue at the roller skating rink. Like, I don't even know if do kids still go roller skating nowadays? Tell me, I don't know. But it was everywhere. But it wasn't just that song. Like, En Vogue was like a whole different thing, a whole different thing. And so if you're not familiar with the R&B groups from the 90s, I recommend go onto Spotify or Apple, these iTunes, and look up En Vogue, look up some of these 90 R&B groups that were phenomenal. And then just over the years, they just disappeared. I mean, that really was the time, and maybe I'm biased because of my age, but that really was the time for music to me. Like, the 90s had everything. Like, R&B groups were phenomenal in the 90s. I don't know what's going on with R&B groups today, right? The 90s brought you ska. It brought you a little bit of, gangster rap, but then you also had the boy bands. There was something for everybody. And this was before social media. So you didn't have the assistance of social media to help you sell albums. That's something to keep in mind. But I think it's great that he offered to help her. Because like I said, like, he's her ex-husband, like, he really doesn't have to do anything, but that goes to show you that he cares and he understands and he knows what the music industry is like. But I did see people making fun of her, like, on social media, that she was living in her car. And like I said, like, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen to the singers, the actors, but you don't know what's going to happen with you. And you'd be surprised how many people are just one paycheck away from living in their car. So I think it does say something about the music industry. I also think, she ran into some troubles, which, we've talked about a little bit earlier, but I think that it just goes to show you that things aren't always what they seem, and what's done in the dark comes to light. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.